I used to drive for a rideshare app back in 2019. Most nights were boring. Drunk people, fast food runs, students too tired to talk. But one night changed how I looked at the job forever. It was close to midnight on a Thursday. I got a ping from a quiet suburban street, the kind of neighborhood where the houses all look the same, and every driveway has one of those little solar lights glowing in the yard. When I pulled up, I saw a young woman standing there, hugging herself like she was cold. She had a backpack slung over one shoulder, but the way she kept glancing behind her made me think it wasn't the weather bothering her. She got in the back, whispered a soft, "Hi," and gave me the address. I hit start on the app and pulled away. I figured she was just shy, so I didn't push for small talk. But a few minutes later, I checked the rear view. Her eyes weren't on the road ahead. She was watching out the back window. At first, I thought she was just zoning out, until I noticed the car. A dark sedan, a couple cars back, headlights locked on us. It had pulled onto the street right after I picked her up. I took a left. It did too. I slowed at a yellow light. So did it. I turned into a gas station lot like I was going to stop. The sedan followed us in, then slowly rolled out when I circled back onto the road. That's when my passenger leaned forward, her voice trembling. "He's following us, isn't he?" I didn't know how to answer at first. I just kept my eyes on the mirror and said, "Do you know him?" Her hands twisted the strap of her backpack so tight her knuckles went white. "It's my ex," she whispered. "He won't leave me alone. I've blocked him on everything. He shows up at my classes. He stands outside my dorm. I thought if my friend ordered the ride, he wouldn't find me this time." I swear my stomach dropped. The car was still behind us, never tailgating, but always there, watching. I asked her if she wanted me to drive her straight to the police station. She shook her head so fast I thought she might be sick. "No, he'll see it. If he knows I'm talking to the cops, he'll do something. Just don't go to my place. Please, don't take me home." The way she said please, it wasn't a request, it was a warning. So I started driving aimlessly, down side streets, looping around neighborhoods I didn't know. My pulse was hammering, and every time I checked the mirror, that dark sedan was still there. Always 2 cars back, never closer, never farther. Finally, I cut across 2 lanes and made a sharp turn toward downtown. The sedan followed, but the sudden move gave me just enough of a gap to think. A few blocks ahead, I saw the lit-up sign of a police substation. Without warning her, I gunned it straight into the lot and parked crooked across 2 spaces right in front of the entrance. The sedan slowed at the edge of the lot. For a moment, it just idled there, headlights glaring at us. Then it backed up, turned, and drove off like nothing happened. The girl broke down crying the second I stopped. I ran inside, yelling for an officer, and within minutes there were 2 cops walking her inside. She told them everything while I stood off to the side, still shaking. They asked me a few questions, got my info, and told me I could go. I didn't sleep much that night. My chest still felt tight like I'd been holding my breath for an hour straight. The next morning, curiosity got the better of me. I checked the local news. Buried in the police blotter was a short entry. Man arrested for stalking outside police precinct. Vehicle search revealed rope, duct tape, and a knife. That's when it hit me. If she hadn't noticed him, if I had just done my job and dropped her off like normal, that guy would have known exactly where she lived. He had everything ready in his trunk. I gave my last ride a week later and deleted the app. I still drive at night sometimes, but every time headlights stick too close in my mirror, my hands tighten on the wheel. I don't wait to see if it's nothing. I pull off. I change routes. I don't take chances anymore. I was a junior in college when I started noticing him. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. A guy with a black umbrella who seemed to always be in the same place as me. I don't even know why I noticed the umbrella. It wasn't always raining, but he always had it. Closed and tucked against his shoulder, like some kind of accessory. The first time was outside the library, late at night. I had stayed until closing to finish a paper, and when I stepped outside, he was leaning against the lamppost across the street. Black hoodie, dark jeans, and that umbrella. I didn't think much of it, until I realized he wasn't going into the library. He wasn't waiting for anyone. He was just watching. I walked back to my dorm quickly, but halfway there, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, and there he was, 50 feet back, moving at the exact same pace I was. My heart pounded. I picked up speed. He picked up speed. It wasn't until I darted into the dorm lobby and the security guard nodded at me that he slowed down, turned around, and walked off like nothing had happened. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe it was just bad timing. But then it started happening again. Over the next week, I saw him 3 more times. Outside the dining hall, on the path to my 8 a.m. lecture, even once standing at the far end of the track when I went for a run. Always the same clothes, always the umbrella, and always his head turned toward me. I tried to tell my friends, but of course they laughed it off. "Maybe he's just into you," one of them said. Another joked, "Umbrella guy has a crush." But I could feel it, the intensity. This wasn't flirting. This wasn't casual interest. This was deliberate. The scariest night was when I was walking home from work. I worked at a little cafe downtown, and my shift ended at 11. It was a 30-minute walk, but I couldn't afford Uber every night. That night, halfway home, I realized the streetlights were casting a second shadow behind me. I didn't even need to turn around to know it was him. I started walking faster. He matched. I slowed. He slowed. I cut down a side street, heart hammering. His footsteps echoed behind mine. By the time I got to my dorm, I was in tears, practically running through the doors. I told the night guard, but when we looked outside together, the sidewalk was empty. The next morning, taped to the outside of my door, was a folded piece of paper. It just said, "Nice run last night." I couldn't breathe. My roommate was gone for the weekend, so I just sat there alone, clutching my phone, thinking about how someone had followed me all the way to my dorm. He knew where I lived. He knew what floor. Campus police brushed me off. "Probably just a prank," they said. "Do you have any proof it's the same guy?" Proof. As if I could snap a picture while I was running for my life. For 2 weeks, I barely slept. I kept my curtains closed, refused to walk alone. I even stopped going to class in person. Still, he found ways to remind me. Notes under my door. One night, my doorknob rattled softly at 3 a.m., just once, like someone testing it. The final straw was when I came back from the library one evening, unlocked my door, and saw it. The umbrella, leaning against my desk. There was no sign of forced entry. My window was still locked. My roommate swore she hadn't touched it. It was just there, inside my room, like a message. I moved out the next day, packed my bags, broke my lease, and crashed on a friend's couch off campus. I don't know how he got in, and I never saw him again after that. But to this day, I can't walk past someone holding an umbrella without my stomach dropping. When I moved off campus my senior year, I thought I was finally escaping all the stress of dorm life. No more roommates, no more shared bathrooms, no more cramped, noisy halls. I found a tiny one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat about 15 minutes from campus. It wasn't much: squeaky floors, a drafty window, and the constant hum of the dryers downstairs. But it was mine. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe. For the first 2 weeks, everything was fine. Classes were steady. I liked being able to cook my own food, and the constant noise of the laundromat was almost comforting at night, like white noise. But then, one night while I was brushing my teeth, I heard it. Knocking. It was faint, but rhythmic. 3 slow taps, pause, then 3 more. It was coming from behind the bathroom wall, the one that separated my apartment from the next unit over. I froze, toothbrush halfway to my mouth. It was nearly midnight. Who knocks on a wall at midnight? I waited, thinking it would stop, but it didn't. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. I finally banged on the wall myself, more annoyed than anything. "Hey!" I yelled. The tapping stopped immediately. The next day, when I left for class, I noticed the door to the neighboring apartment was open a crack. I slowed, curious, but couldn't see inside. The landlord had mentioned someone lived there. A middle-aged man, quiet, kept to himself. I considered knocking, but something about the stillness inside made my skin crawl. So I kept walking. That night, the knocking came again. Same rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. I put on my headphones and tried to ignore it. But after that, it started happening almost every night. Always around midnight. Always that same slow rhythm. Then it escalated. One night, instead of tapping, I heard something scrape against the wall, like fingernails dragging down the drywall. Long, slow scrapes, over and over. I sat frozen in bed, clutching my blanket, listening as the sound traced the entire length of the wall, from my bathroom, through the kitchen, past the living room, and finally stopping right behind my bed. I couldn't sleep after that. Every creak in the building made me jump. A few days later, I came home from class and found an envelope slipped under my door. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It was me, sitting at my desk, typing on my laptop. The angle was wrong for it to have been taken from outside. It was shot from inside my apartment. I dropped the photo and ran straight to the landlord. He swore no one else had keys, said the neighbor was weird but harmless. He brushed me off like I was being paranoid. That night, I pushed my dresser against the door and barely slept. The next morning, when I finally gathered the courage to check the hallway, there was another envelope waiting. This one had 3 photos. The first was me sleeping. The second was me in the kitchen, pouring coffee. The third was a close-up of my face, eyes closed, mouth slightly open, like the camera was just inches away. I felt sick. I called the police, but without evidence of forced entry, they couldn't do much. They suggested maybe I had left the door unlocked. They promised to keep an eye on things, but I could tell they didn't believe me. That night, the noises behind the wall changed. Instead of knocking or scraping, I heard breathing. Slow, steady, deliberate. I pressed my ear to the wall and nearly screamed. It was like someone was standing right there, inches from me, exhaling directly into the plaster. I moved my bed to the opposite side of the room that night. The breaking point came a week later. I was in the shower when I heard it. A faint click, like a camera shutter. I whipped the curtain back, heart racing, but the bathroom was empty. The door was still locked. My hands were shaking as I tore the place apart, looking for hidden cameras, but I found nothing. That night, another envelope appeared. Inside was a single note. Scrawled in jagged handwriting, it said, "I like when you sing in the shower." I didn't even pack. I just grabbed my laptop, my keys, and bolted out of the apartment barefoot. I spent the night in my car, engine running, every shadow on the street making me jump. The next morning, I begged my landlord to let me out of the lease. He refused at first, but after I showed him the photos, his face went pale. He didn't argue after that. I went straight to the police station that morning, photos and the note clutched in my hands. This time, they took me seriously. An officer came with me and the landlord to check the unit. Inside, they found something I hadn't noticed. The bathroom mirror was loose. Behind it, in the wall cavity, was a hole big enough for someone to crawl through. A hidden passage that connected to the apartment next door. The neighbor's unit was stripped bare. No furniture, no clothes, no dishes. Just stacks of Polaroids, rubber banded together, covering nearly every surface. Hundreds of them. All of me. Me brushing my teeth. Me eating. Me sleeping. Me undressing. Some of them were so close up, I could see the pores on my skin. The police put out a warrant, but he was already gone. Vanished. No forwarding address, no phone number, no trace. That was 3 years ago. I've moved twice since then, each time to a different city. I lock my windows, triple check my doors, and cover every mirror. Because sometimes when I'm lying in bed, I swear I can still feel it. The weight of a camera lens aimed right at me, waiting for me to forget it's there. I used to work nights as a nurse at a hospital downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but the pay differential for overnight shifts kept my rent paid and my fridge full. Most of the time, the job was just exhausting. Tired patients, the endless beeping of machines, and the occasional code blue. What I never expected, though, was how much the parking garage would haunt me. It started innocently enough. One morning, around 7 a.m., after finishing a 12-hour shift, I was walking back to my car on the 3rd level of the garage. The place was always eerily empty at that hour, save for a handful of nurses and doctors trudging to their vehicles. I noticed a man standing by a concrete pillar near the exit ramp. He wasn't dressed like staff. No scrubs, no badge, just jeans and a jacket. He was staring, not at anyone in particular, but at the row of cars, as though he was waiting for something. I brushed it off. Big city, weird people, move on. But then I saw him again. The very next morning, same spot, same posture, same blank stare. This time, I felt his eyes follow me as I unlocked my car. The prickling sensation on the back of my neck made me quicken my pace. I drove off without looking back, but my chest was tight the whole ride home. Over the next 2 weeks, he became a fixture in my routine. Sometimes he was leaning against the pillar, sometimes just standing with his hands in his pockets, always around the time my shift ended. No one else seemed to notice him, or maybe they just didn't care. I tried telling myself it was nothing. Coincidence. Maybe he worked odd hours too. But then small things started happening. One night, when I got into my car, I noticed my windshield wipers had been lifted. Both of them. No other car in the row had been touched. Another morning, there was a sticky note under my wiper that just said, "Smile more." I nearly vomited right there in the driver's seat. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely start the ignition. After that, I began scanning the garage constantly. I carried my keys like a weapon, thumb pressed against the panic button. For a while, I didn't see him, and I thought maybe it was over. But I was wrong. One Thursday morning, as I approached my car, I noticed something shiny wedged in the passenger side handle. It was a single key, tied to a red string. I stared at it, my stomach dropping. The implication was clear. He wanted me to know he could get in. That night, I went to security. They nodded, wrote down a report, and promised to keep an eye out. But the garage cameras were old, the kind that produced grainy, unhelpful footage. They couldn't even confirm if he was real or if I was imagining things. I left their office with a stack of paperwork and no sense of safety. Things escalated fast after that. One morning, as I slid into my car, I caught movement in my rearview mirror. He was there, standing at the end of the row, just outside the reach of the dim fluorescent lights. His head tilted slightly, like he was studying me. I froze, hand hovering over the lock button. Then he smiled. Not a friendly smile. A slow, deliberate stretch of lips that made my blood run cold. I locked the doors, started the engine, and drove off like a bat out of hell. But the image of that smile burned into my brain. From that point on, he was everywhere. At least, it felt that way. I'd catch glimpses of him across the street as I walked into the hospital, a shadow leaning against a wall when I went for coffee. Once, I swear I saw him standing across from my apartment building, half hidden by a tree, just staring up at my window. Sleep became impossible. I'd lie awake, every creak in my apartment making me jump. Was he outside my door? Was he in the hall? My mind started to betray me, weaving his presence into every corner of my life. Then came the night that broke me. I had just finished a brutal shift, 3 patients coded in one night, and all I wanted was to collapse into bed. The garage was unusually silent, the hum of the fluorescent lights buzzing in my skull. When I reached my car, my heart stopped. Every single window was fogged up, from the inside. I stood there, paralyzed, staring at my own car like it was a coffin. Slowly, with trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone and called security. It rang twice before someone picked up. "There's someone in my car," I whispered, eyes glued to the back seat silhouette I thought I saw through the haze. By the time security arrived, the windows were clear. My car was empty. Nothing missing. Nothing out of place. They brushed it off again, said maybe it was condensation. Maybe I was overtired. But I knew. I knew someone had been inside, breathing, waiting. That was the last night I worked at that hospital. I quit 2 weeks later, packed up my apartment, and moved to a different city. I left behind friends, a steady job, and nearly all of my belongings. The police never caught him, if I even had enough proof to call it a case. Maybe he was just some drifter. Maybe he was a predator who moved on to someone else. Or maybe he's still out there, watching someone new. All I know is, to this day, I refuse to park in a garage. I'd rather walk 6 blocks in the pouring rain than step foot into one again. Because I'll never forget that smile in the mirror. And the worst part is, I don't think he ever wanted to hurt me. I think he wanted me to know I was his.